We'll try this shim washer. And you're probably wondering, why would you need shim washers? Well, sometimes it's just because the strap lug is distorted, and the strap lug can get distorted in a couple of ways. One favourite way is to drop the camera. Drop the camera, that can distort the strap lug, and yeah, that's working beautifully now, that's fine. That's all it wanted, was a little shim washer there. And that will certainly do it. If the strap lug's slightly distorted, you may find that it effectively is tighter here than it should be, and a shim washer makes all the difference. The other way that you can create problems is if someone decides they want to use some great big thick strap that doesn't want to go through the lug, and in doing so they distort the hell out of this trying to get a strap through it. That will also cause problems. We want our strap lug at the other end of the camera, and I know that this strap lug is bent, so I'm going to have to straighten that up. Let's see how we get on. This is most certainly the result of the camera having been dropped. It should be good. Let's find 2 screws for that. Get this in place. This will hold that chrome trim down firmly. And I'll get that rubber band hooked around there a bit better. That's good. Our film advance is working nicely. Returns to the rest position nice and smooth. No undue tension there. I'm looking at the mesh of the teeth on the cocking rack here. That's snug. It's not loose, so that's good. That's fine. Let me run that down another turn. Right, well that's the mechanics of the camera body dealt to, really. The next stage for this is to clean and install the rangefinder and have a look at that exposure meter, which certainly needs work. It's got 2 obvious problems, well 3 actually. The meter only works if you sort of give the selenium cell a nudge by pushing on the little window at the front, so there's obviously a bad contact in there. The glass on the top of the meter is loose, and that'll need to be glued back down. And the dial on the top of the camera for the follower needle, that definitely does not work, or does not work reliably. But that might be a task for another day. It's beer o'clock. Well, another day. Let's get this rangefinder to pieces. I'll scribe a line here so I know where to put that back to. That arm, the pivot for the arm runs into a bush. The bush can be slid along. And I need to go back in the same position, otherwise there's an awful lot of mucking around of adjustments to be made. So by scribing a line there, I'll know where to put it back. So here I've got, move this into the picture where you can see it. Here's the fixing screw, the wavy washer, the bronze bush in the arm. And I'll mark the position of that. again so it'll go back in the same relative position. That's that bush that the screw ran into. 2 screws hold the prism in at the end of the rangefinder. Leave that screw alone, you do not want to disturb that. That holds the glass prism into that bracket, and if you disturb it, you'll have a lot of trouble putting it back where it should be. A single screw at the back here holds that mask in place. And the mask holds the rear glass or the eyepiece glass in place here. It seems to be well stuck. That's pretty much flat on one side, convex on the other. Convex side goes inwards, flat side to the outside. Always keep lots of pressure on your screwdriver when you're trying to get screws loose. Never let the screwdriver slip, otherwise you'll end up making a mess of something. Alright, so I'll slide out that retainer. There we have a glass with lines on it, the silvered lines. That's the larger of the rectangles. And at the front of this set, we've got 4 pieces here. And they're sealed in place with lacquer top and bottom to stop them shifting. I've got to dissolve that lacquer with some acetone. Put a drop of acetone in there, and the same at the bottom. Need to do this a few times to get that lacquer softened up. Alright, give that a go. Now the rear glass piece is just a thin glass like this and quite fragile. So what I normally do is just flick at the edge of this metal mask here with my fingernail. See if it'll shake loose. It's not in a hurry, a bit more acetone I think. That's well and truly stuck. That's it. It just moved. That's the rear glass, the silvered rectangle on it, smaller rectangle than the other one. There's the metal mask. And this is the front piece. That's a thicker piece of glass. That's well cemented in there. I'm just applying some pressure with my finger on that. Seeing if it'll let go. Yep. Don't slam that down. If you slam that down, that glass will break, which means you've then got to go and find an organ donor. And you never want to be in that position. So I'm going to use some acetone to clean the rangefinder housing here where those glass components slide in. Just to remove that acetone so that it's that lacquer, so that it's easy to put this back together. And I'll clean the frame here where the arm's been mounted with a bit of naphtha to remove that old grease. This is ready to go into the ultrasonic cleaner. I put that in a small glass with a drop of dishwashing liquid and hot water, and then suspend a lot in the ultrasonic cleaner and give it 3 minutes, and that's usually sufficient to clean that semi-silvered mirror without damaging anything, and then dry it all off. That semi-silvered mirror's got quite a bit of marking on it, dust and haze that's picked up. So back to cleaning up some of this other stuff. Well, while I've got the acetone here, I'll clean up these glass pieces. Because lacquer will have run down onto those. Let's check how well I've done with reflections from the window. That looks pretty good. And likewise the front component. Need another one, cotton bud, to clean that. I'm still using acetone to do this. Make sure I get rid of any traces of that lacquer. That looks good. Now there's that mask, that celluloid mask from the front there. That can be cleaned with acetone. Bit of lacquer still on there. I'll have another go at that. This has your parallax correction marks on it, this piece. It should lie dead flat. This one's got a bit of a bow in it. That'll be fine. Now this was the rear glass with the silvered lines on it. This hasn't got any lacquer on it, but it's a bit dirty and greasy. The acetone's clearing that quite nicely anyway. So what I'll do is these two pieces with the silvered lines, and I'll put them back into the frame. This is the rearmost one. The silvered line should be on the face, facing the front of the rangefinder. Here's the front one, the smaller rectangle. The silvered line should be facing into the rangefinder, facing the rear of the rangefinder. And I'll put the bracket in place that holds that in there, and I will run this through the ultrasonic cleaner as previously mentioned. And clean those three pieces of glass held in that frame. This piece here, before I finish with this acetone, I better clean that. I can see traces of lacquer on this. This is painted, so don't be rubbing it this hard. You'll end up shifting the paint off it and you won't like the result. It'll loop. Right, this to the ultrasonic cleaner. Right, with everything clean, I can put this back together. So I'll start by removing that bracket. And that metal mask goes behind the rearmost of those glass with the mirrored lines on it, and this retainer goes in the front. Slide that in. At the front, I have the front glass there. This mask clips over it. This is on the concave side of that front piece, like that. Check that there's no dust inclusions. Then slide that in front of the mirrored piece. Our parallax correction mask goes in. There's two marks in the corners at the top, one mark in one corner at the bottom, and that's held in place with the other spring, and the bracket can go back on. The rear glass should go in convex side in, plain side out. And I'll put the mask on there that retains that, which is held in with a single screw. Okay, that's the main body done. I'm just going to look through that, see if it looks nice and clear. It does. The mask's the right way up. Everything's looking hopeful. The prism. cleaned the prism, all three faces. Put that in place. There's two screws which retain it and also give us our vertical alignment adjustment. Okay, that'll do nicely. Now the arm. I've cleaned the glass in here, this has all been cleaned. I'll wipe some molybdenum paste around the inside edge there of the hole and just a brief wipe on that top surface there where it's going to go against the body of the rangefinder. Got the bronze bush here, or the brass bush, with its alignment mark that I'd made. Press that in. Get that alignment mark where it was. Now I want my assembly jig for putting this together. This little bush has to be put into place. So it goes on the inside at the bottom. It's tricky to get that round the corner and in position. There it is. Now I use my jig to hold that in position. That's supported underneath with that brass post on my alignment jig. The arm can go on. I'm just wiping that with the molybdenum paste. Put the wavy washer in place. Get the fixing screw, put that in place. Run that down with a pair of tweezers. Now I need to check my mark I made here on the housing to get this arm in the right place. I can just see the mark there, so that's probably where it wants to be. Now I'll tighten that up. I've got the pin for retaining the spring, so I'll pass that through the spring, stretch it out and hook it into position. Check that the arm moves freely, and now I'll check the alignment. And my vertical alignment is a mile out. The moving image is far too high. So I just want to loosen that screw at the front, tighten that screw at the rear, check again. Now I've gone the wrong way. That's pretty good. It's slightly low if anything. And my horizontal alignment is pretty good. I need to adjust this stop screw in slightly. Find a suitable screwdriver. as it comes back past the infinity. That's good. So my rangefinder is all adjusted, it's all working well at that point. I have to make final adjustments, will have to be made when this is on the camera. But before I do anything else, I want to replace the lacquer that I removed when I was taking it apart. So I've got some clear lacquer here. This is just cheap clear nail polish from the your bargain basement store. And just a drop top and bottom is all that's going to be required. That'll stop those front components from being able to shift, which means that the horizontal alignment will stay where it was put. If that was able to shift, your horizontal alignment would go out. Okay, so that's ready to go onto the camera body, which I suppose we can do. I'll get that out and we'll get onto it. Okay, so I've got the camera body ready. Now, I want to put a couple of drops of lacquer on this to keep it in position. Since there are no dowels to fix things, it's simply held with the screws, and there's a certain amount of potential wiggle room there. But a couple of spots of lacquer works well. And I'll put this in place on the camera. Two screws, drop them in from the top. With luck, everything lines up. Run that screw in. Make sure the arm's free, that it's forward of the connection from the camera. Get that one started. Now normally I hold the rangefinder back firmly towards the back of the camera while I do those screws up, which locates the rangefinder firmly. And that should be it. And as we move the focus, you can see that the arm on the rangefinder moves with it. So now I've just got to check my alignment. So I'm looking out the window at a suitable target. And I can see that my vertical alignment is slightly low. And my horizontal alignment, it's not quite coming back to infinity, so I need to loosen that lock screw and swing the arm out slightly to the front. It's a very slight adjustment required. In this case, it's easily overshot. Want a bit more than that. That probably moved it too far. Yeah, it did. That seems very good. I'll just lock that there. For the infinity adjustment, you want it adjusted so that the images of an infinity target just meet as you move the focus scale ring to infinity. And as soon as you move it away from the infinity mark, the images should diverge again. Yeah, that's probably not quite right there. I can see that that's coming together a bit too early, so I'll just adjust that slightly. That's better. You don't need to use infinity as your target. You could use any of the marked distances on your focus scale ring if it was more convenient. One way you can do this at home is you can have a suitable target on a computer screen, a measured distance from the camera. This scale's marked in feet, so I'd probably choose 3 feet or 4 feet, set the camera up on a tripod and check that the alignment was correct at that point. Okay, so our rangefinder's on the camera now, that part's all done. I've got to deal with the meter next, I think.